Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into an epic story, 5,000 years of ancient Egypt. We're going to see how the world's very first superpower shot to incredible heights, and then how it all came crashing down, just like a prophecy said it would. It's a tale of gods, gold, and massive empires clashing.
And we're actually going to start this story kinda at the end. This prophecy you're looking at from the Prophet Muhammad, it actually predicts the final chapter for a civilization that was already ancient. But, to really get how it all ended, we have to go all the way back to the beginning.
All right, so let's rewind the clock. We're talking 5,000 years ago. Let's find out what made Egypt the most powerful place on the entire planet.
So, what was the secret to Egypt's power? You might think armies or gold, but nope, not at first anyway. It was water. It was all about the Nile. In a time when water meant life, the Nile basically turned Egypt into this lush, fertile paradise that brought in tons of people and created just, unimaginable wealth.
And with all that prosperity, a leader named King Narmer stepped up and did something nobody had ever done before. He created the world's first unified kingdom. And the craziest part? We have the proof. It's basically its birth certificate, the Narmer Palette, one of the oldest historical records ever found.
And for the next, get this, 1,000 years, Egypt was it. They were the center of the universe, the planet's only superpower, totally undisputed. They had zero rivals.
Can you even imagine that?
So, what do you do when you have literally all the power and all the money in the world? Well, the pharaohs had an answer, and it was one nobody had ever dreamed of before. They decided they weren't just kings. No, they were actual gods walking among mortals. And to lock in that god status, they came up with a really important religious rule. It went like this. A pharaoh could only stay a god forever if their body was perfectly preserved here on Earth. Just think about that. That one idea kicked off this incredible, high-stakes race against death itself. And that's how we get to mummification. It was this, pretty gruesome but also incredibly advanced surgical process, all designed to cheat death. And, this was intense stuff. They were pulling the brain out through the nose, curing the body in special salt for over a month. Okay, so you've got this perfectly preserved body. Now what? Well, it needs a home that lasts forever, right? And this set off a total architectural arms race. Every pharaoh had to have a bigger, better tomb than the guy before him. And these tombs started evolving, getting bigger and bigger until, boom, you get the very first pyramids. This whole competition finally led to the big one, the Great Pyramid of Giza. And to give you an idea of the sheer scale here, think about the Burj Khalifa, right? The tallest building in the world today. The Great Pyramid is so massive, it weighs more than 12 Burj Khalifas put together. That's just insane. But there was a huge problem. This whole quest for eternal life, it came with a fatal price tag. Building these massive projects cost a fortune, and they were literally draining Egypt's economy dry. The world's first superpower was basically bankrupting itself for the sake of ego. So for the first time in a millennium, the empire was actually vulnerable. All that spending on pyramids had left it weak, and the economy was starting to fall apart. Now, Egypt got a temporary save. According to religious accounts, a man known as Prophet Joseph came along. He started as a slave, but through his wisdom, he completely turned the economy around. But it didn't last. After he died, a new line of pharaohs took over, and they were really suspicious of outsiders. They ended up enslaving Joseph's people, the Israelites, for the next 400 years. And that act of oppression really set the stage for a huge, dramatic showdown. And it all kicked off with, you guessed it, another prophecy. But this one wasn't some far-off prediction. It was a direct warning to the pharaoh. A boy will be born among the enslaved Israelites, and he will be the one to destroy your 3,000-year-old empire. Well, the pharaoh was terrified, so he gave a horrific order: kill all the newborn Israelite boys. But the one they were looking for, Moses, somehow survived. Now, here's something fascinating. This story, one of the most famous in human history, is right there in the Quran and the Bible. But when you look at the official Egyptian records, nothing. It's completely missing. So the story goes that Moses eventually confronted the pharaoh, a man named Ramses, and demanded freedom for his people.
After a whole series of plagues and miracles, Ramses finally agreed. But just as the 600,000 Israelites were leaving, he changed his mind, gathered his entire army, and chased after them. It all led to this epic final confrontation at the Red Sea. And this is where things get really interesting. Because while historians argue about the details of the Moses story, they all agree on one thing. Whatever happened, right after Ramses, the Egyptian empire just fell apart. This was the killing blow. The death of a pharaoh like Ramses and his entire army with him, it completely shattered that 3,000-year-old myth that the pharaohs were invincible gods on earth. Just like that, Egypt lost its superpower status and plunged into a long decline that historians call the Dark Ages. And of course, a weakened Egypt became a target. It was now a prize for any up-and-coming empire. First, it was conquered by the Greeks, led by Alexander the Great. Then the Roman Empire swooped in and took control, and they would rule over Egypt for the next 600 years. And that brings us right back to where we started. In the year 641 AD, after almost 6 centuries of Roman rule, that prophecy from the beginning of our explainer came true. Muslim armies arrived, they conquered Egypt, and Roman rule was over. You know, the 5,000-year story of ancient Egypt is really a timeless lesson for all of us. It's a powerful reminder of how a dangerous mix of ego, massive debt, and internal division can tear down even the most powerful empire. And it really leaves you with a big question, doesn't it? Are today's superpowers paying any attention to the lessons from history's first?